Ronnie Burlap, a native son of this great state, who tragically died this week in a ski accident. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, as we begin this new year, we implore your wisdom and guidance. Grant to the members of these legislative bodies an outpouring of your Spirit, that they may be wise in their judgments and serve freely the best interests of all the people of this great state. Broaden their personal concerns, that they may seek the common good. Clarify their vision as they work together in the search for the best ideas and strategies to meet the greatest needs of our times, to best serve and safeguard the equal and inherent dignity of every human person, and to always be attuned to the helpless cries of the most vulnerable among us. Bless all members of this house, both the new and the experienced. May their faith in you, Lord God, and their awareness of the noble purpose of their awesome responsibilities on behalf of the people they represent keep them humble in their service. May their families remain their deepest love and lasting joy. May all here who assist them in these chambers, in their respective offices and in committee responsibilities, be wise in their counsel and gracious in their service. May this legislature be a sign of unity and confidence to the people of New Hampshire, good news to the poor, and an instrument of peace in this corner of our world. Lord God, in you we trust, now and forever. Amen. Amen.
The chair recognizes the member from Nashua, Representative Peggy McCarthy, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair now recognizes the B Naturals from Alburn High School in Hudson, New Hampshire, my alma mater, who will sing our national anthem.
Oh, say
question of leaves of absence. Sorry about that.
Everybody comfortable? I tried to get sofas in there.
Southport, Williams. The dead, Bethlehem family, Representative Grove.
These leaves of absence will be granted unless otherwise ordered by the House. The House will attend to introduction of guests.
Mr. Speaker, please welcome James Seglini and Stephen Pretorius, guests of Representative Lundgren. Lloyd Haddon, guest of Representative Ticehurst. Lois Scrivener, wife of Representative Moffett. Ian Saunderson, wife of Representative Saunderson. Michael and Sharon Watson, guests of Representative Francis. Stephanie and Andrew Alisea, Dante Salisbury, daughter, grandson, and guest of Representative Alisea. Ian Hill and the Honorable Kathleen Lauer Rocco, former member from Franklin, son and guest of Representative Hill. The Honorable Michael McCarthy, former member from Nashua, husband of Representative McCarthy. The Honorable Robert Scott, former member from Wyndham, guest of Representative Rose. The Honorable James Smith, former member from Nashua, guest of Representative Harvey. The Honorable Suzanne Bale, former member from Nashua, guest of Representatives Harvey and Horgan. The Honorable Mark Pearson, former member from Salem, guest of the Speaker. They are with us in the gallery today.
Welcome to the New Hampshire House. I want to introduce to you the House Legal Counsel, former New Hampshire Supreme Court Justice, and former U.S. Congressman, Chuck Douglas. The House will attend with communication.
Mr. Speaker, in a letter dated December 23rd, 2014, dear Paul, please be advised the following representatives-elect were sworn into office by the Governor and Executive Council on this day. Hillsborough County District Number 2, Gary S. Hopper. Hillsborough County District Number 12, Ted Rokas. Hillsborough County District 21, Dick Berry. Hillsborough County District 26, Christopher Adams. Merrimack County District Number 26, Jason Parent. Sullivan County District 9, Virginia O'Brien Irwin.
Congratulations and welcome to the New Hampshire House. The House will attend to a further communication.
A letter dated January 3rd, 2015. Dear Mr. Speaker, effective immediately, I resign my seat in the New Hampshire Legislature, Rockingham District 32. I do so with orders to concentrate on my duties to serve the office of Congressman Frank Ginta and the veterans community of our state. Respectfully, Brian F. Dobson.
The House will attend to a resolution. Excuse me, I'm almost doing the job. The House will accept the resignation of the member. The House will attend to a resolution.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Flanagan and Sherwood offer the following resolve that the House of Representatives inform the Honorable Senate that it is ready to meet in joint convention for the purpose of canvassing the votes for council and governor.
The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. chair recognizes the clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate is now ready to meet with the House of Representatives and join convention for the purposes of canvassing votes for governor and executive council.
The House will come to order. The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms. Leave it to the Senate to tell us they're ready. This way. Members are reminded to turn on their voting stations. Chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Senate.
Chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the Senate, the Honorable Chuck Moss of Salem.
Joint convention will attend to a resolution. Joint convention will come to order. The joint convention is formed for the purpose of canvassing the votes for governor and executive council. The joint convention will attend to a resolution.
Mr. Speaker, Representatives Flanagan and Senator Bradley offer the following. Resolved that the Honorable Secretary of State be requested to lay before the joint convention the return votes for governor and executive council.
The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Is you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable David M. Scanlon, Deputy Secretary of State.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of the Senate, and members of the House, in accordance with Article 42, Part 2 of the State Constitution, I appear before you to present the return of votes for Governor and the Executive Council. For Governor, In Belknap County, Maggie Hassan received 11,069 votes. Walt Havenstein received 12,603. In Carroll County, Hassan received 10,332 votes. Havenstein, 10,316. In Cheshire County, Hassan received 16,440 votes, and Havenstein received 10,611. In Coos County, Hassan received 6,429 votes. Havenstein received 4,151. In Grafton County, Hassan received 20,155 votes. Havenstein received 12,884. In Hillsborough County, Hassan received 67,525 votes. Havenstein received 70,041. In Merrimack County, Hassan received 32,365 votes. Havenstein received 24,608. In Rockingham County, Hassan received 57,743 votes. Havenstein received 60,538. In Stratford County, Hassan received 24,032 votes. Havenstein received 18,026 votes. In Sullivan County, Hassan received 8,576 votes. Havenstein received 6,832. The totals were Maggie Hassan received 254,666 votes. Walt Havenstein received 230,610 votes. Maggie Hassan, having a plurality of 24,056 votes, was elected governor. For the Executive Council in the 1st District, Joseph Kenny received 49,260 votes. Michael Cryans received 47,798. With a plurality of 1,462 votes, Joseph Kennedy was elected Executive Council. In the 2nd District, Colin Van Ostrand received 48,850 votes. Timothy Dillon received 38,501 votes. And with a plurality of 10,349 votes, Colin Van Ostrand was elected to the Executive Council. In the 3rd District, Christopher Sununu received 61,601 votes. Robin McLean received 38,420 votes. The plurality for Christopher Sununu was 23,181 votes, and he was elected to the Executive Council. In the 4th District, Christopher Pappas received 44,500 votes. Robert Burns received 40,912 votes. And with a plurality of 3,588 votes, Christopher Pappas was elected to the Executive Council. And finally, in the 5th District, Dave Wheeler received 50,743 votes. Diane Sheehan received 41,138 votes. And with a plurality of 9,605 votes, David Wheeler was elected to the Executive Council. And with that, Mr. Speaker, that concludes the return of votes presentation. Thank you.
The convention will attend to a joint resolution.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Flanagan and Senator Bradley offer the following. Resolved, that the vote for governor and the Executive Council be referred to a committee consisting of 2 on the part of the Senate and 3 on the part of the House to compare and counter the same and report thereon.
The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. The chair appoints Representatives Chandler, Flanagan, and Shurtleff, and Senators Bradley and Woodward. Representatives Flanagan and Bradley move that the joint convention arise. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the joint convention is adjourned. come to order. Representative Patrick Sherman moved the adoption of an amendment to House Rule 65 as proposed by the Rules Committee and is printed in the House calendar. All right, the chair recognizes Representative Flanagan to speak in favor of the rule.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the nice things about the calendar is it identifies that the Senate and the House concur in sync on the dates. Crossover deadlines for bills and spring break are also listed in the calendar.
Thank you. The question is on the adoption of the amendment to House rules. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Representative Hinch and Flanagan moved the adoption of the amendment to House Rule 63 as proposed by the Rules Committee and is printed in the House calendar. The chair recognizes the member from Portsmouth, Representative Kankalakis, to speak against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I would like to speak on Rule 63 in regards to gun on the floor of the General Court. In 1985, we passed a law, RSA 158:19, that said guns are not allowed in courthouses. Since we are referred to as the General Court, that makes the laws that are enforced in the court. Are we not breaking the law allowing guns in the building? This law was not on the books at the time the ruling was made by the AG's office. I really would like a ruling on this matter. I'm sure that people who put us into office do not expect us to break the laws we make by making policies or rules that allows us to do something they cannot do. We need to remember this is the people's house and we are elected by the people. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the member from Hampton, Representative Fred Rice, to speak for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the last 2 years, no one in this body has known whether I have been carrying a concealed weapon or not. For the next 2 years, I guarantee you that you will not know whether I am carrying a concealed weapon or not, regardless of what the rules say. I said these exact same words in this spot in the well 2 years ago, and they are every bit as true now as they were then. We're talking about a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. We're not talking about the Wild West. We're not talking about irresponsible people running around waving guns in the air and making a scene. We're talking about people who want to have the right to self-defense. Now, there are those amongst us who want to go to the press and paint all kinds of horrific boogeyman stories that there's going to be shootouts and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. To do so is to insult every single member of this body. It insults our judgment, our capabilities, our ability to be responsible, and our own sense of complying with the Constitution. This is a very simple matter. If people want to carry guns and the Constitution permits it, then they should be able to. The beauty is, and the thing that makes this a secure measure, is the fact that weapons cannot be displayed. Displaying a weapon would be foolhardy. That wouldn't make sense at all. Concealed carry provides an added security that anybody who would come into this body and do harm to the members of this body would have no idea when they walked in the door whether everyone was carrying or only one person. They would have no idea whether they were over there or up there in the back or over here. Nobody would know. And that is the security that is inherent in concealed carry. Yes, we have a uniformed officer in the gallery. For any disturbances that take place in the gallery, I'm sure that that officer is 100% capable of taking care of those things. We're talking about things that may happen on the floor of the house, people coming in. Say somebody came in this way. We always hear of somebody going wild in the gallery. Now, the picture that's painted, it's kind of like asking us to believe the scenario from Louis Reefer Madness. Everybody gets a gun in their pocket, all of a sudden they're out there shooting and they're going to display them and everything else, and they're going to go hog wild. No, they want to protect themselves. The uniformed officer in the gallery is certainly capable of doing that in the gallery. But if somebody comes in here and intends to do harm, we should have that right to protect ourselves. It should not be taken from us. We all know what happened in Canada recently, where in their Houses of Parliament, a member of the Sergeant at Arms who was down, I think it was the Sergeant at Arms, got a weapon. We had to go to get the weapon. And then he shot, and when he killed the intruder who came in and shot several members in the House. We should have no less than that. We have a right under the Constitution. We have a right under the New Hampshire Constitution to keep and bear arms. And there is a very important phrase in there, that right shall not be infringed. We're not asking for the world on this. We're asking for the right to do what we do in our daily lives, every place else. Merely the right to carry a concealed weapon for defense of our own person. It doesn't incite anybody to irrational behavior. It doesn't incite anybody to instigate things. These are the people that the citizens of New Hampshire have elected to carry out their laws. They expect that we are the most responsible people in the state. From time to time during the next couple of years, we may all come to question that a little bit. But we are the people that they trust. And if we can't trust each other to exercise good judgment, common sense, responsibility, and a sense of security, then we've got an awful lot of work to do. So I support the ability, this change in the rules that would allow members of the House to carry concealed weapons at any time. I'll take it.
Chair recognizes the member from Dover, Representative DeSessa, to speak against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, our guests in the gallery. I'm Len DeSassa, representing Ward 4 in Dover, and I'm urging you to vote against this amendment which will allow firearms back on the House floor. And I say that both as a gun owner, I own several firearms, and as an advocate of the Second Amendment. I was a police officer in New Hampshire for over 25 years, and I retired several years ago as Deputy Chief of Police for the Portsmouth Police Department. Under H.R. 218, the 2006 Cops Carry federal statute, I have chosen to undergo training which will permit me to carry a concealed firearm in all 50 states. So I'm also a Vietnam veteran, and I'm very comfortable with firearms. I'm experienced, I'm trained, I'm skilled, and I'm respectful of what they can do. With that said, I believe this amendment is misguided at its best and dangerous at its worst. We all know the Hollywood scenario. The good guy shooting from his hip or her hip and firing across the length of a football field shoots the bad guy in the shoulder, just a flesh wound, causing the bad guy to drop his gun, fall to the ground, and surrender. Tragedy is averted, the hero prevails, a happy ending, as the credits scroll up the screen. The real-life scenario is radically different. It is an adrenaline rush, chaotic scene where it can be very difficult to clearly see what is going on or even who the bad guy is. Because engaging and eliminating an active shooter is traumatic and shocking. even to the police officers who are trained to deal with that kind of event, and the tunnel vision that goes along with it. Bullets don't always hit their intended target, and skilled marksmen can miss it. Innocent bystanders are often injured or killed by a stray bullet. Once that round is fired, you cannot take it back. And there's always the risk of an accidental discharge if the weapon is not secured properly, or if it's handled badly. That puts all of us at risk. All of us. Especially the children who are going to be watching us from the gallery. The only people who should be armed in the House of Representatives are trained police professionals. I urge you to vote this amendment down. Thank you.
Will the member yield to a question? I will not. Member will not yield. Chair recognizes the member from Goffstown, Representative Burke, to speak in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I feel safe with the state trooper up in the gallery as he is carrying a firearm if some nut decides to get out of line and tries to harm one of our guests in the gallery. Now, where I have an issue is if a nut with a gun comes into this chamber through the anteroom or over by the Sergeant of Arms, the main door where the Sergeant of Arms is. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Whether it is a state trooper or a fellow representative, then would you please join me in supporting Rule 63? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Will the member yield to a question? Member yield, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. If a fully trained and experienced police officer were in the gallery but wearing civilian clothes, would that person be able to carry a concealed weapon according to the rules that we have?
I believe they would not. And thank you for the question.
Representative Burke has requested a roll call. That roll call was sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Representative Rice, Fred Rice, would you please come to the well. Representative Fred Rice. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a gun owner, a licensed hunter, and as someone who carried a concealed weapon for over 25 years as a law enforcement officer, if I realize, Mr. Speaker, the responsible gun owners know there are certain places where we should not have guns, correctional facilities, courtrooms, airports, schools, and the floor of the New Hampshire House. And Mr. Speaker, as someone who has been present just a few years ago and realized there is one law that this body can never repeal, that being the law of gravity. And having seen, Mr. Speaker, a member drop his gun that was concealed out of his shoulder holster onto the floor of a committee room, or Mr. Speaker, seeing a member drop her .25 automatic that was concealed in her handbag onto the floor of a committee room. And knowing, Mr. Speaker, I don't wish to see that in this body, and most importantly, I don't wish to see that in the visitors gallery when I push the red button and vote no on this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question is on the adoption of the amendment to Rule 63. If you are in favor of the adoption of that amendment, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you will press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Burke for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that sidearms have always been a part of the New Hampshire House for almost 196 years, and if I know that our fine state police and security will do all they can to keep us safe, yet there are so few of them for such a large, wonderful state house that we do the people's work in. And if I know that it is our duty to protect ourselves, would I now vote yes by pressing the green button to allow us to continue the tradition of this beautiful New Hampshire State House? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the adoption of the amendment to House Rule 63. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor of the adoption of that amendment, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you will press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. Please turn on your stations if you haven't done so. we're here on the question of foot. The House will attend to the state of the vote. The House will be in order. There having been 228 votes in the affirmative and 149 in the negative, the amendment to House Rule 63 is adopted. For what purpose does the member rise? You may inquire.
Mr. Speaker, would it be possible to get a ruling on the law that's on the books now?
I'm afraid I don't understand the question you're asking the chair to rule on.
Well, I would like to know if it is really in our best interest to break a law that's on the books, and it says in courthouses. And this is referred to the general court.
That is not a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you.
So at this time, Representative Packard shall move the adoption of amendment to House Rule 22C as proposed by the Rules Committee and is printed in the House calendar. The chair recognizes the member from Ringe, Representative Hunt. For a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to table this bill.
Representative Hunt moves that the amendment be tabled. Are you ready for the question? All right. We have a request for division. Members will take their seats.
Here we go. Come on, Al, do it.
Roll call has been requested. Is that sufficiently seconded? It is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Members will take their seats.
I was getting a little concerned when you get
The parliamentary situation is that the House Rules Committee has proposed an amendment to House Rule 22C, which would require 20 votes for 20 seconds for a request for a roll call. Representative Hunt has moved that that amendment be laid upon the table. We will be voting on Representative Hunt's motion to lay the amendment on the table. This will be a roll call vote. Members, please take their seats.
I was getting concerned. You guys were going to ask for a roll call. I was getting concerned.
Representative Baldessaro, will you please be seated? We have Senator Paul is recognized for the purposes of a parliamentary inquiry. Representative Paul declines to do the PI. Representative Baldessaro is recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you believe, as I do, that this rule takes away transparency? Would you, if you know, as I know, that this rule takes away...
Will the member please suspend? The question is on the motion to table. Well, you're asking me to ask a question either in favor or against tabling, not on the substance of the rule. The substance of the rule is not in question. It is whether we are in favor or against tabling the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you believe, as I do, that this rule takes away the transparency...
Will the member please suspend? The question is on the issuing of tabling. The question is not on the rule itself. You will confine yourself to the issue of tabling, please.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, if I can't talk about what the rule is, will you table this there, please? Thank you.
The question is on the tabling motion. If you are in favor of tabling the amendment, you will push the green button. If you are opposed, you will press the red button. Representative Flanagan is recognized for parliamentary authority. Representative Flanagan declined. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. If all members voted who were present when the question was put, the House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 343 members in the affirmative and 36 in the negative, the amendment is tabled. Representative Stepanek is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move a floor amendment that is in your seat pockets, which is to Section 8 of the rules, and the amendment would be a new Section B and C, and it shall read, the Speaker shall appoint the elected majority and minority caucus leaders as the respective majority and minority leader. If the elected majority caucus leader is the Speaker, he or she shall appoint his or her designee as the majority leader. And I will speak to that motion.
Representative Stepanek is recognized to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This session of the House has seen remarkable developments. Major precedents, such as the majority party Speaker nominee being elected as Speaker, have been ignored. Some would say violated. And yet those who are the violators of this most basic and important precedent now insist we must follow other precedents which suit their agenda. In the well, the Speaker said he was not the leader of the Republican Party. He would be the leader of the whole House. He also said he would not determine the agenda of the House, that would be done by the minority caucus and the majority caucus. Yet now he has appointed his own leadership team to run the majority caucus and shape that caucus's agenda, even though that caucus is not elected. This House has set a new, and I believe, very dangerous precedent, where the will of the minority and majority caucus no longer matters, where their elected caucus leader no longer may be appointed as a majority or minority leader. More concerning than that is a situation where in the future we may have a House with 195 minority members and 205 majority members, and the minority leader could actually be elected as speaker. And therefore, a minority leader as speaker would be appointing the majority leader. This rule change makes it very clear that the speaker must respect the wishes of the minority and majority caucuses when it comes to appointing their leaders. It also accounts for the situation where the elected majority leader and speaker nominee is elected as speaker, allowing the speaker to designate somebody to represent him or her as majority leader. Since important precedents are being ignored, I feel it is critical for this House to put into rules, not only for this House session, but to set a standard for future House sessions, the extremely important protection for both majority and minority leadership teams. And, Mr. Speaker, I will be requesting a roll call for this most important rule change. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the member from Amherst, Representative Rowe, to speak against the Stefanik floor amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, 6 years ago, I thought it would be a good idea if each caucus elected their leader and the elected speaker had to accept that person. I decided to check it out. I spoke with the Democratic leadership, I spoke with the Republican leadership, and they were unanimous. They said the speaker is in fact the speaker of the entire House, but the speaker is one party or the other. And the majority leader should be someone who the speaker has a chemistry with. Should not be anyone that is difficult personality, and as you know, we politicians don't have personalities. So I respected the advice of these leaders, and I dropped my quest. 4 years ago, we passed a rule that the majority party elects its leader, and the speaker must accept that. It was a disaster. It was embarrassing. It was a bad idea. The speaker has to have a majority leader that can deal with personality and philosophy. I truly, truly encourage you to vote no on this amendment, and if it is a roll call vote, push the red button. Thank you.
Will the member yield to a question?
No, I will not.
The member will not yield. The chair recognizes the member from Kingston, Representative Weiler, to speak in favor of the Stefanik floor amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support Amendment 8 as I enter my 14th term here and bring a little tradition to what's happened. One of the most important traditions is collegiality. Sometimes it's difficult to choose between two friends, but we hope you can do it in a collegial way, because the person that is your opponent on this issue may be your most important ally on the next one. So don't make enemies here. Don't be vindictive. Don't say things that you regret, and don't use provocative language. Stick to the issue and not the personalities. I'm here as the only one in this House that was a candidate in a situation that was used 10 years ago. It has been mischaracterized, it has been misrepresented. 10 years ago, we had a caucus meeting. We elected a caucus leader. The Republicans were in the majority. That person chose to resign. Just days before the organizational day, it left it wide open. 3 of us Republicans jumped into the fray. None of us had been a candidate at the caucus day. So, it was a free-for-all. We were splitting the votes. The minority party decided to play the role of kingmaker. And the candidate they chose had more to do with generational alliances. It was a person that had been absent for
14 years from this body. Maybe someone they expected to be the one that they would least disagree with. Anyway, I lost. But that situation was unique. It did not occur this time. What occurred was we had a caucus. We elected a caucus leader. Then when we came to the House, organizational day, there was a change in the procedure that had never happened before. Yes, usually if we elect as the majority party a majority leader, that person then, we support the speaker. Then they pick the right-hand person, he or she, to be the majority leader so they can work together. So we had a very unusual situation. The minority party again became the kingmaker, and we got a person who was not elected by the majority of the Republicans. Very much of a precedent-setting situation. So, what this amendment says, if this ever happens, then the person who was elected by the Republican caucus, if they're not the speaker, should be the majority leader. And that's what this says. And you never know what this precedent will do in the future when who knows what party will be in charge, and who knows what occasion will take place with alliances that might or might not be made in future. So, to protect what happens at the caucus, and you will note that even the Republican Party has not chosen the speaker, which they normally do if it's a Republican, to be on the Republican State Committee. They have rejected that person and put in the person who was elected by the Republican caucus. So I ask you to support this and press the green button, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Chair recognizes the member from Pennacook, Representative Shurtleff, to speak against the Stepanek Forum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be brief. Mr. Speaker, in the last session, I had the honor of being selected by our then Speaker, Chair Norelli, to be the majority leader here in the Hampshire House. And I know firsthand that there's a special relationship between the Speaker and the majority leader. They truly are a team. They must share the same political values. They must see the same vision for the direction in which they want their caucus to go. They must agree on what legislation is important to the people of New Hampshire. Mr. Speaker, I would urge this body to continue with our practice of allowing the Speaker to select their majority leader of their caucus. I would ask you to vote no by pressing the red button on this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the member from Hampton, Representative Wood, to speak in favor of the Stepanek Forum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to the guests. Thank you, colleagues. I do support that you press yes and accept this amendment. Again, my name is Representative Wood. I'm from Hampton, District 21, and I'm a freshman. As a freshman, I'm filled with a lot of enthusiasm. I want to get a lot done. And we freshmen, and many of us, need more than anyone strong leadership. This has been a very complicated start, to say the least. When things get confusing, I like to use common sense. To me, the common sense says that the majority of the people, and this is more important than personalities between two people, it's about teamwork. I agree with that. But common sense tells me that the right thing to do is to elect a majority team. It's not just the individual, it's the majority team. And therefore, I strongly urge you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the member from Londonderry, Representative Packard, to speak against the Stepanek Forum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This proposed rule really goes against practice and precedent that has been in this House for the last 100 years. Except for once, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we elected
the majority leader. And then he resigned over personal issues. Did we have another election? No. The Speaker appointed the new majority leader at that point. Prior to that appointment, for I think it was about a year and a half, we had total dysfunctionality between the Speaker's office and the majority office. They didn't communicate with each other. We had different times been told one thing by the Speaker's office and then something else by the majority office. No continuity whatsoever. If that's what you want, then vote for this rule change. Because that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get continuity. You're not going to get a sense of all of us being together. You're right, we have a lot to accomplish this year. We're going to disagree with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle on the budget, I'm sure. I think we all know that. But we need to come together as a Republican Party so that we can pass the budget we want to pass, no new taxes, no new fee increases. That's our goal. But we can do it with respect for each other. We can do it with humility with each other, and we can treat the other people on the other side of the aisle with the same respect as we'd ask them to treat us. We have a lot to do. Our constituents sent us here to do a job. This is distracting from the job we need to do. We need to stop it. We need to stop it now. You can't have two majority leaders. It's ludicrous. I've seen that they want to set up an office across the street if they don't win this vote. Come on, let's get serious. We have a Speaker who is a Republican Speaker. He's appointed Republican Chairman, Republican Vice Chairman, and Republicans to all the offices in the Speaker's and the Majority office. And we're going to put forth a Republican agenda. Now stop the nonsense, vote against this amendment, and let's move on as Republicans and Democrats and do the people's business. Councilman, will the member yield to a question? The member will not yield. A roll call vote has been requested. Is that sufficiently seconded? It is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Members will take their seats. The answer to your parliamentary inquiry is that the House rules do not allow retroactivity. As you know, we are not allowed to pass retroactive laws either. And in this case, there would be retroactivity in this rule, and it would only apply to future circumstances.
majority and minority leaders are the leaders of their respective caucuses. That you know that the whole House, as we have seen, may prefer a different leader than either of the caucuses. And if you know that New Hampshire is not a red or a blue state, but a very purple state, and that we can expect small majorities very frequently. And if you believe that the majority deserves the same respect to acknowledge its elected leader as the minority has, will you join with me and press the green button?
The question is on the Stepanek floor amendment. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you will press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Chandler for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that for decades, with only one exception that didn't work particularly well, the Speaker has traditionally appointed both the majority and minority leaders of the parties, and I also know from many years of experience that this is the only way that this political system can work effectively for all concerned. But I now stick with the tried and true tradition of this House and maintain a sensible approach to the upcoming session by pushing the red button and defeating this amendment.
The question is on the Stepanek floor amendment. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you will press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. If all members voted who were here when the question was put, the House will stand to state of the vote. There having been 120 in favor and 260 in opposition, the Stepanek floor amendment fails. There being no further amendments, are there any further amendments to the rules? The rules will stand as amended. The House will attend an introduction of bills. Chair will recognize Representative Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move floor amendment to House Rule 30 to institute a committee by the name of Government Oversight and Audit.
The chair will rule that amendment out of order as it was as we were aware of the amendment. I asked that it be looked at to see if it was in conformance with all of the rules of the House. It is in conflict with Rule 30G, Rule 31, and therefore it cannot be implemented as written, so it is out of order. Parliamentary report.
May I ask how it is out of order with Rule 31?
It is out of order in terms of audits. Both of these rules deal with performance audits. Both of those areas, in both of those rules, those audits are assigned to other committees, and your rule would put that in conflict with existing House rules, and therefore it is out of order. House will attend to introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Flanagan offers the following resolve. In accordance with the list in the possession of the clerk, House Bills number 101 through 139, House concurrent resolutions number 1 and 2 shall be by this resolution read a first and second time by the therein listed titles, sent for printing and referred to the therein designated committees.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. The chair recognizes the member from Brookline, Representative Flanagan, for a motion to adjourn from the early session.
Resolved, the House now adjourned from the early session and the business of the late session be in order at the present time.
The question is on the motion to adjourn from the early session. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. No. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House will attend to request for unanimous consent. Representative Bixby is recognized for unanimous consent to speak to the national rights on the Constitution. Natural rights. Please remember that there are also announcements that you may need to hear, so I would encourage you to stay in the hall.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I'd like to address some issues in the Constitution.
Will the member please suspend? Will the House come to order? The member has a right to be heard.
I'd like to point to a few points of philosophy in our state constitution that is useful in looking at how we look at legislation in the next couple of years. In the early 1780s, the people of New Hampshire found themselves in an interesting position of having forcibly ejected the government. As they considered what to do next, one philosopher they looked to was Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes' Leviathan, written in the mid-1600s, used the idea of natural rights and laws to show how sovereign states develop. By nature, man has the right to do anything he wants in the course of self-preservation, regardless of the effect on others. Guided by natural rights alone, man is in a perpetual state of war with every other man his enemy. In this condition, no creative industry can exist. No culture, no buildings, no trade, no arts, no letters, no society. The life of man is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In Hobbes' terminology, the opposite of a right is a law, in that rights permit and laws restrict. The first law is that people seek peace. The second, that a man will accept the limits on his natural rights for the sake of peace if others do likewise, and be contented with so much liberty against other men as he would allow other men against himself. Hence, people will form covenants to act peaceably with each other. But what about those who cheat? Here, Hobbes introduces the idea of the sovereign state, which enforces the covenant and enables the development of a civil commonwealth. Hobbes felt that only a state led by the monarch would work. Our forefathers had strong evidence to the contrary, and devised our Constitution as a mechanism to promote a civil society. Part 1 discusses the role of rights. Article 2 of the first part of the Constitution concerns natural rights. All men have a certain natural, essential, and inherent rights, among which are enjoying and defending life, liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and, in a word, of seeking and obtaining happiness. Note the echo of Hobbes' natural rights. Article 3 concerns society, its organization, and purposes. When men enter into a state of society, they surrender up some of their natural rights to that society in order to ensure the protection of others, and without such an equivalent, the surrender is void. Note the echo of Hobbes' natural law. Unlike Hobbes' Leviathan, unlike Hobbes' Leviathan state with its monarch, the sovereign state of New Hampshire depends on the power of a democratically elected and constitutionally organized government to enforce the covenant that keeps us at peace with each other. But surely, there's more to our state than merely not beating up on each other. Just as Hobbes noted that the covenant makes culture possible, our forefathers presented a vision of civil society, and they did this in Article 83 of our Constitution. Knowledge and learning, generally diffused through a community, being essential to the preservation of a free government and spreading the opportunities and advantages of education through the various parts of our country, being highly conducive to promote this end, it shall be the duty of the legislators and magistrates in all future periods of this government to cherish the interests of literature, sciences, all seminaries and public schools, and to encourage private and public institutions, rewards, and immunities for the promotion of agriculture, arts, sciences, commerce, trades, manufactures, and natural history of the country, to countenance and inculcate the principles of humanity and general benevolence, public and private charity, industry and economy, honesty, punctuality, sincerity, sobriety, and all social affectations and generous sentiments among the people. Our founders envisioned a society where agriculture, manufacturing, arts, and sciences would flourish through the work of an educated and moral citizenry. When all citizens serve the common good, the result is a civil society that benefits all. But what do these philosophical points have to do with us legislators? Central both to the Leviathan and to our Constitution is the idea that in a civil society, individual rights cannot be absolute. The rights of one individual need to be balanced against the rights of others. What power determines these balances? For Hobbes, the monarch. For New Hampshire, it is we representatives, and the Senate, the governor, and the courts. Every bill we consider has a potential impact on the rights and well-being of our citizens. We will certainly disagree on the particulars of the balance, but I hope that when we are considering legislation, we will look to our founders' vision of a civil society to guide our thinking. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Wall and Rowe for the purpose of memorial remarks.
I know. Good to see you. Good to see you. Congratulations on
I gotta go downstairs just for a minute. Are you going to lunch? Where?
Representative Rowe, since Representative Wall, it's going to take a while to get around here. Do you mind if we move on to next remarks while you're getting organized? The chair recognizes Representative Catherine Rogers and the Concord delegation for the purpose of memorial remarks. The House will be in order.
Thank you all. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, friends in the gallery, once in a while it's important for us all to take a step back from our work here in Concord and recognize a rare and special individual who stood among us. Someone of achievement and inspiration and a life well led. We in Concord and we in New Hampshire want to recognize such a person today. On December 29th, New Hampshire and Concord lost Lieutenant Colonel Stephanie Murdo Riley of Concord to cancer at the age of 47. She served our country and our state and was the backbone of her family. Steph spent her life serving others and leading the cause of helping others, even in her own struggle. She was a nurse, a wife to Sean, and a loving mother to Shane, 13, and Sandy, 9. Lieutenant Colonel Riley served in Operation Desert Storm and in the New Hampshire Air National Guard, where she was deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. She served with distinction. Stephanie worked at Concord Hospital. She served on the New Hampshire Commission on Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder and Traumatic Brain Injury, was a member of the New Hampshire State Veterans Advisory Committee, and 2 years ago was in this hall with us and served as a member of Governor Hassan's military guard during the inauguration. Lieutenant Colonel Riley loved the military and would have loved to serve another 20 years. But it was not in the cards for her. Her body betrayed her powerful will. She bravely fought and defeated breast cancer, only to have to take up the fight again against lung cancer. She rarely allowed her determination to live faith from view. She served our nation as long as her health was allowed. But her body betrayed her. Lieutenant Colonel Riley was to have her retirement ceremony this coming Saturday, January 10th, but cancer denied her that honor. She lost her battle with lung cancer, but not without one hell of a fight. After her diagnosis, she was tireless in her efforts to raise awareness about early cancer screenings. She knew the face of the enemy, and Steph was a powerful weapon for good. Last fall, over 5,300 walkers rose $560,000 for research in the Concord Making Strides Against Cancer law. Steph was among them, even though she was battling stage 4 lung cancer. Even then, she led the way. She'd walked in the event a year before without assistance, but this time, as one of the largest fundraisers, she still wanted to participate. I walked a little bit of it and did the rest of it in a wheelchair that my great friends took turns pushing, she stated proudly. The 5-mile walk became a bit of a pep rally, included 184 teams, and among them was the Steph Strong team. Her team wore pink camouflage sweatshirts. She kept everyone updated on her battle with cancer by posting on Facebook. She was incredibly open about her cancer victories and her struggles. Among her postings, quote, "I told myself to stop being such a wimp and just give myself a stupid shot. Well, I gave myself the shot, and now I'm a pro at self-injections, just another learning experience in this cancer journey." Another quote, "You always kind of wonder if you've made any impact in your life, and I'm just overwhelmed by just how everyone is behind me." Another one, "Just got home from the Veterans Council committee meeting, which I'm the secretary, an awesome group of veterans, service organizations, and community members that do so much for the veterans in the state. I'm so proud to be part of such an important organization." And one of her last ones, "If I could give anybody advice, I'd say, listen to your body and get things checked that just don't seem right so that you can treat things early and successfully. Change your priorities and don't let the stress kill you. Family and friends are what it's all about. Live and love well." Mr. Speaker, New Hampshire lost a great warrior and a great woman. May we all show the courage she's shown to her family, to her friends, and to her country when our time comes. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Stephanie Riley, for showing us all what it means to be Steph Strong. Rest in peace, my friend. Thank you.
Would the House please rise for a moment of silence in memory of Lieutenant Riley? The remarks of Representative Rogers will be recorded into the permanent journal unless otherwise noted by the House. Entered into the permanent journal unless otherwise reported by the House. Chair recognizes Representative Wall and Rowe for purposes of memorial remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last November, one of New Hampshire's premier citizens died, David Nixon, at the age of 82. David was a military veteran. He was an attorney. He was a legislator, a member of this House, and he was president of the Senate. I got to know David 40 years ago when he took an extreme measure in the Senate of taking the Senate on the road. They went around to different schools and had executive sessions. Yeah. But most important about David is in his profession as a legislator and as an attorney, he was a compassionate, 3 years ago, my wife Helen and I went to the restaurant with David and his wife Patty. It was the Mile Way restaurant in Milford. As we were walking out, way off to my left, the woman jumped up from her table and rushed over and said, "Are you Attorney Dixon?" My reaction was, uh-oh, what's coming next? And David said yes. And she said, "I want to thank you. You represented my mother 30 years ago. You saved her life. Thank you." So, colleagues, how many of us would be thanked for something we did, and actually 30 years ago? I think very few. God bless you, David.
Thank you, Representative Rowe. I first knew David through his reputation and through his daughter, who served here in the House when I first started there 30 years ago. I knew him to be a good and decent man. David was a man who was compassionate. David was a man who would take on cases for the regular person. A lot of cases no other attorneys would take on because they weren't money makers. David came back into the House a few years ago and filed a number of pieces of legislation. And I approached him and said, "David, looks like you're trying to clean up a lot of unfinished business." And he said, "You're right, I am." I knew David wasn't well at that time, but David was noble. David was committed. David served with us on the Judiciary Committee and did a beautiful job. He wasn't always respected because he brought in so much legislation at that time. A lot of people didn't think it really mattered, but to David it did. And David mattered to a lot of other people. David became a friend. I knew him, as I said, first through his daughter. My son knew him through me. He became a mentor to my son and a dear friend. David kept in touch with us after he left the legislature. And for those of us in judiciary, occasionally we receive these great big bundles of papers from David, just reminding us of things we needed to do and should do as decent human beings and as legislators. Last time I was in touch with David was last summer, and I knew it wouldn't be long, but my heart broke when we lost him. God bless him, may he rest in peace.
The House, please rise for a moment of silence. Remarks of the representatives will be entered into the permanent journal unless otherwise ordered by the House. The chair recognizes Representative Backus for the purposes of memorial remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm joined by Representative Marjorie Smith in these remarks, which are made on behalf of a wonderful citizen of Manchester, the state of New Hampshire, and a long, very important part of the history of this House and this legislature. I speak of Attorney Tim Zachas of Manchester, who died very suddenly, and his wake is actually tomorrow. Interestingly enough, in the remarks we just heard about the David L. Nixon, another fine lawyer and citizen of Manchester, who worked in Manchester, Tim and David Nixon were best friends. Tim was raised came from Bennington, New Hampshire. His parents were immigrants from Greece, and he came up to attend Wesleyan University, which happens to be my alma mater and David Nixon's alma mater. He was the first White House fellow. He served in that time and got very close to the Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach at the time when the Civil Rights Movement was at its height and the Justice Department was enforcing voting rights in the South, and he was a key part of that. Since he returned to Manchester to practice law, he spent 42 years with one law firm, the Sheehan Pitney firm in Manchester, but he never stopped contributing to the public in so many ways. There's so many things he did. He was a critical part of the development of Southern New Hampshire University, which is, everybody knows about that now, what an amazing institution that is, coming from a small operation over a Palace
this group panel to now having 5 campuses. He also was a long-time trustee and chairman of the board of the Currier Gallery of Art in Manchester. And he just made that institution into a world-class museum, the pride of not only Manchester but New Hampshire. Under him, the museum was completely renovated, 50% expanded in exhibition space, and it's become a source of great pride and great benefit to the citizens throughout New Hampshire with its not only its exhibits, the last one was amazing, but its art education and many other activities it has. Dave is the married to his wife Ann for over 50 years, and he's the father of 3 daughters. Those 3 daughters had 5 sons, so we had 5 grandsons. The next generation was going to be all daughters again. But Dave was a terrific family man, a good friend, an able lawyer. He was named the Lawyer of the Year, served many honors. But in terms of this house, he served both as the majority leader in this house on the Republican side and as deputy speaker. And he clearly could have gone much further with a political career, but he was happy with his legal career, happy with his family life, but he never stopped contributing. As his partner, Brad Cook says, a long-time distinguished lawyer, he had the most complete life anybody could imagine. A great family life, a great life of public service, and a great life as an excellent and well-regarded lawyer. New Hampshire's lost a wonderful citizen, and I've lost a great friend with both Dave Nixon and Tim Zakas. And I would ask Marjorie if she'd like to add to this.
Thank you, Bob. In 1965, I was working in Washington and was joined in Washington by my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was in the first group of White House Fellows. In that group were some absolutely incredible people. In that same year, I met a gentleman who came, of all places, from New Hampshire. My sister was quite surprised that anybody from New Hampshire would be someone I would be interested in, and trying to figure out exactly the nature of this relationship, she introduced us to one of my brother-in-law's colleagues in that first group of White House Fellows, and that was Kimon Zakos. In 1965, we bonded, and the bond has never been broken and will never be broken. They do not make people like Kimon Zakos anymore. He spent his entire life focused on the public good, whether it was in having legal services available to people who need it, whether it was understanding the importance of arts and culture in our society, whether it was encouraging people to participate in the political process, whether it was playing a strategic role in building the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to one of the preeminent charitable foundations in the country in every aspect of life. This was a man who was guided by integrity and honesty and commitment to the public good. A lifelong Republican, he was appointed by Republican and Democratic leaders alike to play key roles in advisory positions because they knew that his integrity and his intelligence would rule the day. We have lost a real leader in the state of New Hampshire, and I hope those of us who remain will try always to do our best to live up to his expectations. Thank you.
House, please rise for a moment of silence. last unanimous consent, Representative Bitzie, for the purpose, to speak on the purpose of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really speaking primarily to you freshmen, you who are new to this job. The question is, why are you here? Not what caused you to run for the legislature, but why is the state of New Hampshire here? Why is this chamber here? Why are you here? You'll notice that when you were called down to the well during debates on bills, you're not called by your name. When I'm called down to speak here, I'm not Representative Itza. I'm the representative from Fremont. I lose my identity and obtain the identity of my constituents. So why are you here? Like the character Jack Palance in the movie City Slickers, you have to find out one thing. And you're very fortunate. You are actually the inheritors of a great charge. You are the trustees of the first government in the history of the world, mind you, in the history of the world, created not by king and conquest, but by a written constitution, by deputies of the people. And that constitution actually carries the charge that puts you here. Now, prior to summer, the people, of course, had rolled a cannon up to the door of the governor, and he had decided it wasn't comfortable anymore. So I'm reading from the preamble of that Constitution. The sudden and abrupt departure of His Excellency John Wentworth, Esquire, our late governor, and several of the council, leaving us destitute of legislation, and no executive court being open to punish criminal offenders, whereby the lives and properties of the honest people of this colony are liable to the machinations and evil designs of wicked men. Therefore, for the preservation of peace and good order, and the security of the lives and properties of the inhabitants of this colony, we conceive ourselves reduced to the necessity of establishing a form of government to protect the lives and properties of the good people of this colony from the wicked designs, evil designs of wicked men. In short, to punish injustice. That is the reason you're here. This is carried forward in our current Constitution. Part 1, Article 38, originally the capstone. A frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues is indispensably necessary to the preservation of liberty and good government. The first enumerated social virtue is justice. Now, Bastiat, in his treatise, The Law being a euphemism for government, he states that the one purpose for government is to punish injustice. He goes on to state that justice does not exist in the positive, but only in the negative. You cannot create justice. You can only punish injustice. At this point, we have to make a distinction. What is injustice? Injustice and inequality. Injustice is what one man does to another. Inequality is the human condition. Some are tall, some are short, some are carpenters, some are lawyers, some are engineers, some are teachers, some are born into wealth, and some are not. Some people have trees fall in their cars and their homes are destroyed by wind or waves. Inequality is the human condition. In times past, it was left to God to deal with inequality, whether through his faithful followers, their benevolence, the benevolence of the church as a whole, sovereign miracles, or the next life. But as we drift away from our reliance upon God, we tend to confuse injustice and inequality. And when we do that, we obtain a compulsion to treat inequality as though it were injustice. But when we address inequality with the machinations of government. And in fact, if we don't address every inequality completely, that is injustice. This creates a consuming fire in government that will be greater than the resources of any society. In this room, we will vote on many bills. We can do many beneficial things, great things. We can vote to build roads, feed the poor, heal the sick, protect nature. But if we allow those good and beneficial things to take our eyes off that one thing, the reason why the state exists, why we have government, why we are here in this room, we will have failed. It doesn't matter whether those wicked men are members of the general public or if they have somehow worked their way into government itself. It is still our job to protect the people, their lives, and their property from the evil designs of wicked men. Thank you.
The House will either show pleasure or displeasure with actions taken at the well. I have to be fair to everyone, so you can speak to members later and show your appreciation to them personally, but it is not in order to display emotions in the chamber. House will attend to announcements. Representative Spillane, followed by Representative Itza and Rosenwald. Representative Spillane is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow representatives, there will be a meeting of the freshman class in LOB 307 directly following the short meet and greet that's going to be held in that room by Fish and Game directly following this session. Thank you.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, the creators of the gold sheets that you were handed or were offered to you when you came into the room this morning, are hosting a luncheon downstairs in the cafeteria. You are all invited to come down and do a meet and greet and make yourself known. Thank you.
Representative Rosenwald, followed by Representative Kidder and Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Nashua delegation will have a very short meeting right in the antechamber immediately following session for the purpose of electing a delegation chair. Thank you.
Representative Kidder.
Thank you. Members of the Fish and Game Committee, if we could just meet for a few moments in the LOB 307, our committee room, just for a chance for all of us to kind of put faces and names together. Our first organizational meeting will be next Thursday at 10 a.m. and Martin will be there to give us an oversight. Thank you.
Representative Paul, followed by Representative Phillips and Bates.
Thank you. For those who remember Representative Potts, who served with us during the 2011 year, a man approximately the age of myself, who left behind two young boys. The House Clerk's Office has generously donated two of the journals from the 2011 year. They're in the back table. If you're interested and you remember him and want to sign a note to his wife, Lori, please do so. I will be taking them up to him back there. Thank you.
Representative Phillips.
Unfortunately, I'm a victim of one of those switch jackets or coats. So if someone has my wool overcoat, it's black, please meet me at the back.
Representative Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's going to be a meeting in the
Commerce Committee room, 302, as soon as we're through here. For anybody that is concerned with education funding, if you happen to be representing one of the 79 communities whose cost for an adequate education has not been fully funded since the caps were put in place in 2011, I would encourage you to join us, and I would especially appreciate any members of Division II of Finance who are able to attend. You may find some interesting information to supplement what you heard in the briefing yesterday on this topic. Thank you.
Representative Weiler, followed by Ball and Chris Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to introduce you to the Aviation Caucus. You don't need to be an aviation professional, you just need to have an interest in advancing the interest of aviation in our state. There are several organizations that would like to invite you to their event, such as the Granite State Airport Managers and the Civil Air Patrol. So I would like to get your name on a list. I'll be up in the ante room. If you don't see me there, if you'd like to be added to the list, just send me an email, kweiler@AOL, and I will add you to the list so you will be able to get an invitation to those events. And if we do have any legislation that involves aviation, we will probably call a meeting. Thank you very much.
Representative Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the members of the Criminal Justice Committee, we'll have our orientation day on Tuesday, the 13th at 10 a.m. And on the 15th, we'll be doing a agency visit with police standards and training. We'll discuss that on Tuesday. Thank you.
Representative Chris Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee will meet Legislative Office Building number 305 at 1 o'clock tonight.
Representative Posel moves that the House stand in recess. I'm sorry. Forgot the asterisk at the bottom. The clerk has an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Several different announcements to make here for you. Next Wednesday, the 14th, in room 302, there will be a clerk's training at 9 a.m. for committee clerks. There are 4 bad boy chairs out there who have not informed me who their committee clerks will be. If you would please come see me later for an altar call so that we may discuss that, that would be great. Thank you. Secondly, I have several bills, not several, but some bills that are upstairs ready for chairmen to pick up. If you are a chairman and would like to designate people to pick those bills up, specifically committee assistants, please see me as well. Tomorrow, we are in session. It is a session, even though it is the inaugural, it is a session. If you are one of those unfortunate few in the front rows, you have been displaced. If you would like to attend session, please inform the Sergeant at Arms staff that you would like to be reseated. If you are not going to be here tomorrow, please inform the clerk's staff so that we may list you as an excused absence for the day. I would also like to take this opportunity, several of you received email, but we have 2 faces down here in the well that you have, in one case, not seen before in this chamber, and one case, a position has moved over. So I would like to announce Greg Bro, who is our bill status voting clerk. He came up to us from IT, and he is doing a great job for us. Additionally, Michael Coe was here last session as our bill status voting clerk and has returned. I stole him from the executive branch of government, and he has returned to the best branch of government as my assistant, Michael Coe. Our staff is very excited to work with you this session. Teresa, Kathy, Gail, and myself. If you have any questions, please come see us. You all have my cell phone number, which I admit may have been a mistake to give, but nonetheless, you do have it, and please feel free to call me anytime. Thank you.
And apparently, somebody didn't make the list. Representative Intron has an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Science, Technology, and Energy Committee members will have a quick meeting right now, followed
calling this session over in our room in the LOB, room 304, Science, Technology, and Energy. See you there.
The chair has a reminder. Please remember that the deadline for signing off on your legislation is the 9th, Friday the 9th. So, yes, that is this Friday, as the clerk reminds me. So please attend to that business, particularly since you're here now. All right. Representative Flanagan moves the House stand in recess for the purpose of the introduction of bills and receiving Senate messages. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye.